Good evening, everybody. Right. So what we'll be doing today is working on Fusion 360. What you can see on my table here is a few components that we usually use. Got a pen, scale, and this unique device is actually called a vernier scale. It helps me measure readings. So I would rather show you my screen so it's easy for you to check. Yeah. So this is the vernier scale. So you can see that it measures in mm. So if I have to measure the diameter of this pen, so I just use this, and this measures to about 10.56 mm. Right? Yeah. So we'll be using a lot of this. We could also use a normal scale, using most of it. And this is the chassis that we're going to design today. Now, this material that we've designed this chassis, or got it cut, is called MDF. I'm just going to pause for a moment to check if my audio is clear. I'm just going to pause for a moment to check if my audio is clear. Okay, so we're good to go. So I've got one spare chassis with me. Now this is done of a material called MDF. Now this is a medium density fiber board. They use powdered wood, which is usually a remain of some other projects, and they glue it together and hot press it so they get this board. We use laser cutting to cut these grooves out of these boards for our components to fit. Now once it's cut, you could take them off like this way, and they just pop out. And this is what we'll be designing, and this is how it looks once it gets manufactured. So we're going to show you in the next class how this manufacturing actually happens. We're going to do it live from a machine. All right, so let's quickly start with measurements. We just see what's the dimension of this board. So it measures about 11 centimeters in breadth and about 15.5 centimeters in length. And this is about 13.5 centimeters. So I see that this curve is about 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter. So we'll get a Fusion and see how this is designed. Now this is my Fusion environment. This is my Fusion environment, and I'm going to quickly start with the introduction of how this environment looks like. Now this is what comes into picture when you directly open Fusion 360. Now once you get it, this environment is called the work environment, where we actually design our model. Now this is the view where you could change it in different angles. All that you have to do is left click and then turn it around. All right. To reset the view, we click on home so that our view is there. Usually it is isometric view, which means you get to see almost the maximum of the maximum of the object. Now to start with, we ensure that we are in the model workspace. There are multiple other options, but we are choosing model in the model workspace. If you have already some files that you're editing, I would suggest you click on file and go to new design. So it opens up as a new design. So this is my design. I would save it first. So I go to save option here. It asks me where I want to save. I have a folder here called Brajesh project. I'm going to create a new folder called a new project called ETMOT. That's the project that you're doing right now. And I say the file name is robot chassis. And I save it. So the file gets saved, and interestingly, you can see that there is version that is mentioned. So every time you save the file, there are multiple versions that are created. So it's easy for you to retrieve it. Now the reason why you can do this, or the one important thing that you have to observe when you're using Fusion 360 is it's always connected to the internet. When you connect it to the internet, it allows you to save the file. So even otherwise it will work, but you will not be able to save your design. So at least when you save your file, you need the internet. So it happens, it gets saved on the cloud. Now to start with, for this particular file, what we're going to do is we're going to create a workspace. We know that this is a 2D file. Now this is a 2D file, a 2-dimension file, and it's equal thickness on all sides. The thickness of this material is about 4.7 mm. Let's get started. Now, create sketch. Go to sketch and say create sketch. It asks you which plane you want to create the sketch on. I'm going to select the bottom plane. So when I click on it, it opens up the bottom plane for me. So I do a 2-dimension drawing here, and then I extrude to make it a 3D model. Okay, so I'm going to start. So you can see here it says stop, and you are in the sketch environment. So if you see the stop sketch option here, which means you're actually in the sketch environment, you can start sketching. To start with, I'll start with a rectangle. So I know the dimension of my chassis, which is about 13.5 centimeters by 11 centimeter. So I'm gonna say sketch rectangle, center rectangle. Let's start here. And all I did was go to sketch, click on center point rectangle. I move down, I select the center point, or I can select any point for that matter. And then I click and release, and then I drag across. Once my mouse is released, I would be able to enter the values. So on one side, I know that it's supposed to be about 11 centimeters. So I'm going to say 110. Now, interestingly, this is in mm. 11 centimeter translates to 110 mm. And I click the tab button. You see that this gets locked. The 110 mm gets locked. So no matter where I move, the 110 mm remains the same. And when I click the tab button, I know this is 135 mm. And I click enter. When I click enter, you'll notice that 135 mm and 110 mm is locked. So this is my chassis base. Once this is done, what we do is we see to it that the dimensions are the same. Suppose I want to change this dimension from 110 to say 120. I double click and make this 120. And the dimension changes. Control Z or Command Z will redo this option, and it will come back to the same value. Now once this is done, I know I have to do the other designs, which is these things here in all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly measure this. So for this, I'm going to use my pen. And see that all of this are on one line. I'm going to quickly draw some reference points and also going to do some curves. So go to sketch and click on arc and click a center point arc. Now this creates arc using 3 points. My 3 points are this point, and a point here. I'm going to create an arc. Sorry, sketch, arc, 3-point arc, one here, and this is the arc. Now I need to know how far this arc is from this point. So I'm going to place it right here. But I do not have a reference as to what is the distance between this point and this point. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create an I'm going to delete this arc. I'm going to create a reference point here. For that, what I do is go to sketch, click on line, and draw a line from here all the way up to here. Now, since this line is not part of my construction, I can make this line a dotted line. When I have to make it dotted line, I press X. When I press X, this line becomes a dotted line. This line becomes a dotted line. Now this line is only for my reference. I could extend the line because I've not defined the dimension of this line. Now once this is done, I'll have to create a point on this line as a reference for this point and this point. All right. So I'm going to come back here and click on the point. So this is on the line. So this is the point. Now I have to actually specify the distance between this point and this point. For that, what I do is click on D or go to sketch, and you have an option called sketch dimension, where you will be able to define the dimension or the distance between this and any of these points on the sketch. So I click on this, I say select this point. You see that in this corner it specifies the position of the sketch point. Hello. I'm sorry. I think we just lost connection for a moment. I'm going to do this again. Um, yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm going to screen share now. Great. All right. So I hope now we are able to see. Yes, great. So like I was telling, I'm going to repeat the step again. What we just did was, we just put a rectangle and we define the dimension as 110 mm by 135 mm. And once this is done, we created a line because we wanted a reference line. So, sorry. Line was from the center, okay, and all the way up to the other end. I'm not defined the dimension of this line. And I click on the line and press X. When I press X, I'll see that this line becomes a dotted line. And I'll be able to move this line anywhere because I've not defined the dimension of this line. All right. So what I'm going to do is, the line is perpendicular. And there's another thing that I can do. I'm going to say this line and this are supposed to be at the midpoint. Oh, sorry.
नहीं ये अगर तुमको नंबर लाए तो मुझको पूरा मैं फ्री चाहिए ये मॉडल का क्या प्राइस है बताओ एक सेकंड में ला
All right, sorry. So take a line, create a line from the midpoint to the other side, and then gonna click on this line and press X. Okay. And now I'm gonna bring a point and place it somewhere here. And I'm gonna define by dimensions. Click on sketch, go to sketch dimension and say the distance between this point and this line is supposed to be 10 mm. The reason I do 10 mm is because of this. When you carefully measure with the scale, you'll see that this distance is about 1 centimeter, and that 1 centimeter is actually 10 mm. Now this is defined. Now what I can also do again is create one more line here. Create a line from this point to this point. Again, that's a midpoint. And then click on this line and press X so that this line becomes a construction line. And once this becomes a construction line, I will be able to make use of it. Now this point that is here, I want the same point on the other side as well. So I have two options. I go to Sketch, create a point and place it here, or I have another option called Mirror, where I mirror this point across this line. So I go to Sketch, click on the option called Mirror. It says it mirrors a selected curve, sketch curves about selected sketch line. Okay. So before that, I would create the curve that is required. So go to Sketch, create arc. It's a 3-point arc between this point, and this point. So my arc is created. I'm now supposed to mirror this arc along this side. So what I do, I go to Sketch, click on Mirror. I'm going to select the arc. So you see that object selected, one selected, that's this arc. And the mirror line is what I'm supposed to select. Select the mirror line. I say this is the mirror line. I select the line. And you see that the arc comes on this side as well. And say OK. Now this arc is a mirror of this arc. Now once you see, say suppose I stop Sketch, I see that my chassis is ready with the outer dimensions. I'm still not done the inner dimensions. I'm not still done this, but I've just got the border of my chassis. So this is the first stage to doing the design. Now we click on this design again. You see on the left-hand side, this is basically the browser. If your browser is not open, you just have to click on this plus mark. And then you'll see the sketch that you just created. You right click on the sketch and say edit sketch. You'll again be able to edit it. All right. Now once this is done, let's get to the other dimensions. I've just got a dimension sheet with me. I'm going to show that to you. So this is the dimension sheet. It says this is 110 mm. This is 135. Now, very carefully, I'll just go through. We may not be able to do the entire chassis in this class, but we'll do most of it. Okay. I'll be using these 4 prominent marks that you see here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 as a first reference. I'll be drawing this first. So I have a reference that says this is about 23.1. Okay, yeah, about 23.1 mm from this point. Okay, so now I'm going to create a line. I'm going to go to Sketch, create a line. I'm going to just create a line from this point to this point. All right, and I'm just going to say that this is X. I want this line to be at a distance of 23.1 mm from here. So I'm going to take it as 23. I'm going to go to Sketch and click on Sketch Dimension. Gonna click on this line is already selected. I'm going to click on this line. I get the distance between these lines and say this is supposed to be 23.1. Now you see it's exactly 23.1 centimeters distance from this point. Okay, because these two lines are parallel, you'll see that this line is about 23.1 centimeters. It's about 23.1 centimeters from here, right? I got the first point. I got the first point for this curve. With a rectangle here. The next thing I do is calculate the width dimension of this rectangle. For that, I'm going to use vernier because it's a very small dimension to measure. Give you a vernier, and I'm going to calculate this distance. I'm going to measure this distance. This distance is about 16 mm. It's about 16 mm. And the width is about 4.55. I'm going to take it as 4.6. That's exactly the width of the chassis. It's about 4.55. See this? It's about 4.5, 4.6. I'm going to take this dimension, the width of this, as 4.6. So this is going to be 4.6, and this is going to be 16. 16 and 4.6. I'm going to come back to the sketch. I'm going to create a first rectangle. I would say a 2-point rectangle. Create on this point and goes all the way on this side. And I say this is 4.6 and that one to be 16. I press enter. Now this is created. All right. Now this one is still not defined. This box is still not defined as to how much distance it is from this line. We've only defined the distance from this line to this line and not from this line to the other line. So what we're going to do is we're going to define the distance between this and this. And we look at a sketch plane or a drawing to see if that distance is defined. We're going to see that here it's mentioned 8 mm. Okay, I'm going to take it as 18.8 mm. So like before, I'm going to go to sketch, create and click on sketch dimension. I'm going to select this line and this line. I'm going to tell that this is supposed to be 18.8. Now when we click enter, it's interesting to note that only this rectangle, only the rectangle moves and not this line, because this line is already defined by all other dimensions. So it's important you do these designs step by step so it doesn't get, you don't get confused as to what has to be done as the next step. Once this is done, I click enter. Now you see that this just moved and it's defined. Now this is at a distance of 18.8 centimeter from here. Okay. Now interestingly, these four that you see here, this one, this are symmetrical or they are cyclic. I will use the mirror function. Go to sketch, mirror. I want to mirror this. Okay, I'm going to mirror this along the mirror line, which is this. See, I got another point here. Yes, I say okay. I'm going to mirror both of this across this line. Go to sketch, click on mirror, select this. You double click to select that entire structure or the entire rectangle. Double click. So you see 8 lines is selected and the mirror line is this. And I say okay. Now when I stop sketch, you see that our dimensions are created, right? Now I'm going to retain all of these lines for now. If it's confusing, you can delete them. You can use them as and when you need it. I think we can delete it for now. We'll delete these lines for now. So I'm going to go to sketch, right click and click on edit sketch. I'm going to click on this line and delete this line. I don't need that line anymore. Now delete that line, the diagonal lines. The other lines I will need it. The other lines we will need it. So we will delete it as and when we figure out that we don't need them anymore. Now once this part is done, stop sketch. So you see this part of your chassis is done. All right. Next part that we're going to do is quite interesting. We're going to look for some symmetrical objects. Let's say take this and this and this. All right. And we also see that this is in the center, or either we take this or we take this. Oh, we can go with this. Yeah. So we see that that's in the center. I'm going to take a scale. I'm going to measure from here and check if it's in the center. So in 13.5 centimeters, we see that this is about 7 centimeters, so it's still not in the center. I'm going to take a reference point here. Check this. Okay. Luckily, this is defined from this point. I'll take this point. Okay, let's do this part first, and then we're going to go to the next one. So this one, if you see, the dimension of this is almost equal to the dimension of this. So I'm going to just create a rectangle for now. Now I need to know the distance between this point here and this rectangle. So distance is defined as 5.81. All right. So I'm going to click create a rectangle. So I'm going to go to sketch, edit sketch. I'm going to take this as the front part of the chassis, or I'm going to take this part. I'm going to go to sketch and then create a rectangle, sketch, rectangle. It's going to be a 2-point rectangle. I'm going to start from here. On one side, it's supposed to be 16, and the other side is supposed to be 4.6. I press enter. Now, this is something that you could move around. You've not defined the dimensions yet, or the distance yet. So I click on D, or I press D, or go to sketch, click on sketch dimension. I'm going to say the distance between this line and this line is going to be 5.81. Okay. So I'm going to go here and say 5.81. Enter. All right. There's another thing that I have to also do. I have to also specify the distance between this and this edge. We see 10 here. Do you see 10 here? So I'm going to measure again. This distance is about 1 centimeter, and this distance is about 5 point something here. Yeah. So this is about 1 centimeter, so it's about 10 mm. So I'm going to take this and again click on sketch, sketch dimension. This edge to this edge is supposed to be 10. All right. Now this is defined. All I have to do next is mirror this along this line. We go to sketch, click on mirror. I have to select the object. I selected the object. And then the mirror line, which is this, and say, okay. Now you see I got the object here. When I stop sketch, we've done this part as well. So whatever I've done, I'm going to slowly remove those parts. So you've done this part. I'm going to done this part. This is done. This is done. I think I need an object. So this much of the chassis is done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 parts are done. We're going to go to the next parts quickly. Yeah, coming back to the sketch dimensions. The next part that we're going to do is, all right, let's do some. I'm going to use a scale. It's a little confusing. You're going to do this. Now just measure if it is about 10 mm. From this point, it's about 10 mm. Use this, and I'm going to measure the distance between this and this. The distance between this point and this point is, you see that it's about 5 mm. And sorry, 50 mm. So it should be, and I need to know the dimension of this, which is about 1 centimeter. All right, and this is about 3 mm. So I'm going to do in the sketch, right click, edit sketch. I'm going to create this part here. You see this and this here. I'm supposed to do it here. I'm going to create sketch. Go to slot. There's an option called slot. I say I need a center point slot. I'm going to click on this, and then I'm supposed to define this as 3.1 mm. And sorry, go again. Sketch, slot, center. Yeah, so 1 point here.
It stopped.
Okay, we're doing things again. Okay, I think we just stopped where I was just explaining the fillets as to how we did this. Yeah, so we got this and we mirrored this across this here. I'm gonna zoom out. Now we just supposed to make this curved from the inside. So one option for me here is go to sketch, option called fillet, click on this. I'm gonna zoom in a bit here. Press F. I have to click sketch, edit sketch, go to sketch, click on fillet, click on this and this. So you see a fillet here. I say that's about 1 mm. I could increase that to about 2 mm. Okay. Or I could just make it about 1.5. I'm not sure so how much that is because it's not been specified as how much it is. I think it's about 1.5. In the sheet, it specifies that it's about 1.5 here. It says R is 1.5, all the curves. So I'm going to make it 1.5. And I'm going to click here. And here, again, that's going to be 1.5. This and this is going to be 1.5. This and this is going to be 1.5. Click enter. So when you click stop sketch, you're going to see that to be a beautiful curve, like the slot we were actually looking at. We could do the same thing here. I have another option. Edit sketch. I mirror this after I do the fillet. Once I do the fillet, I mirror it, so even this is taken care of. Now we're not going to do fillet for all of this. We're going to look at the next set of things. In fact, most of it is quite easy here. Once you get this much, you'll be able to do a lot of it. Now let's go ahead and do a few other things that's in the chassis. Now this part is done. And we're going to actually do these holes here in the center, which looks a little complex, but we're going to come to how you do this. So I'm going to bring the measurement sheet. There's a specification of these holes. I think the specification doesn't mention what is the diameter of this hole, but I know for a fact this hole is about 3 mm. 3 mm is the hole diameter. And this is a distance of about 20 mm from each other. It's about 20 mm from each other. This is about 10 mm from each other. And the distance between this and this is about 40 mm. There is no clear specification as to what is the distance between this and the edge, which I'm going to measure now on the chassis. This dimension sheet looks very crowded with all the dimensions in place. That's the reason we've not have all dimensions in this. I'm going to take this. I'm going to figure out what's the distance between this hole here to any of the edges. I see a very clear indication that this one to this edge, which is this edge here, is about 90 mm. That's about 90 centimeters. I'm going to take this as a reference point and then start doing these holes. All right. So I'm going to place this hole at about 10 mm from each other, which means this is exactly at the center. So if this is the center, if this is the center line, we see that this is 5 mm and this is 5 mm. Okay. So I know that this center point and this distance between from this point to this point is 90. Okay, I'm going to do this here. So we've got this. It looks a little messy, but yeah, we could hide them. I'm going to create sketch, go to circle. I need a center diameter circle. I just place one circle here. And I'm going to say that it's about 3.1 mm. Right? I place one circle. I'm going to define the boundaries for the circle. I'm going to go to sketch, click on sketch dimension. From this circle to this center line is about, sorry, from this circle to this line is about 5 mm. Yes. And from this circle to the edge here, it's going to be 90. I'm going to say 90 and click enter. Now you see this? This is fixed. Now once this is done, I'm going to mirror this along this line. So I'm going to click on this. Sorry, I'm going to go to sketch, click on mirror. I'm going to click on this and select the mirror line, which is this. Sorry. So it's taking the point. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. Click out. I'm going to select the circle. Yes. Then go to sketch, mirror. The mirror line is this. Okay. This mirror line is this. And say okay. Got this two here. So this two is done. Great. Now I have an option of creating the other two holes. This. I'm going to create a hole here, sketch, somewhere here, it's about 3.1 mm diameter. Okay, I know for a fact that this distance and this distance is about 40 mm. Sketch dimension, click on this, and this is about 40 mm. Okay, and once this is done, I have to ensure that, see, there are chances when you do this, instead of this moving closer, this would move, which means you have not defined this dimension along the x-axis and the y-axis. So when you have defined its dimension, it will not move. Now this, you have only defined 40 mm, so it can actually move along this line. So if you see this, it can actually move along, because you're not defined the distance from the center. Get that? And we know that this one to this center point is about 10 mm. I'm going to click on D again. Now click on this and this line and say this is about 10 mm. And once this is done, I'm going to mirror it, sketch, mirror line is this, say, okay, I got the circle. Yes. Now when I stop sketch, I got this. All right, I'm going to quickly go around and then sketch. We're about 7:55, which is about 5 minutes. So I'm going to stop at this. Edit sketch, click on this. Oh, I'm going to do a fillet. So I'm going to sketch, fillet, sketch, fillet, this one and this one, it's about 1.5. Same thing with this and this, and same thing with this and this, and same thing with this and this. Now click and say okay. I'm going to stop sketch. All right, I'm going to stop the sketch for now. Assuming that this is a chassis that we're supposed to be building. This is actually done with most of the chassis. This is where our motors come in, and this is where our sensors fit in, and this is for a gripper that we're going to build. All right, now once this is done, I'm ready to eliminate these lines which are not necessary for me. I can click on them, I can delete them. I can just click on them and then just delete, 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 or I can retain them for further edit in future. I'm afraid something is moved. It just moved from its point. Okay, all right. So I'm going to trim out all of these lines. Go to Sketch, click on Trim. I don't need this anymore. Okay, I'm supposed to click. Okay, yeah, I'm going to click on Sketch, Trim. I don't need this line. I'm going to delete this line, delete this line. Any other line that we do not need, this line, and this line. Okay, I'm going to stop the sketch. I've got my chassis here like this. What I'm going to do next is go to Extrude, Create, Extrude. I want to extrude this surface. I'm going to click on it. I know the thickness of my chassis, that is about 4.6 mm. Click Enter. Now this chassis is done. So when you go to around this, you see that the chassis is ready. Now this will need a little bit of more work because not all the parts of the chassis are ready. Now if you look at this, is exactly what we have as chassis with these two holes not there. I'll take out those holes for now. So this is exactly what we see here. All right, and in the model as well. Now once this is done, what we do is go to Sketch, right click, and there's an option called Save as DXF. The very important step, it says Save as DXF. DXF is a format, it's called Data Exchange Format, a universal format used for sending across measurement files from one computer to another or one place to another. So you save this file as a DXF file. So you click on this and it says, I can click on my desktop. I can say my chassis and save. It gets saved as a DXF file. And that DXF file is what we send to the manufacturer to be able to manufacture it. So on my desktop, I have this file called mychassis.dxf. I will send this to the manufacturer to be able to manufacture it for me. Now, if you're doing this chassis and gonna send it across to us, we're gonna cut it for you and give it across in this format next class. It's gonna get cut this way. Now, if you're sending what I've done right now, you only get so much with these cuts happening. If you want to do further, you could do it. All right. So here we wrap up this particular session. We're going to do much more in the coming days. But this session was primarily to introduce you to Fusion 360 as a revision and also show you how a chassis is designed. And once this is done, you will be able to send it across to the manufacturer, like in this case us. You just mail this file to us and we will be able to manufacture this board for you. All you have to do is specify the thickness of the board and then you'll be able to do it. Right now, DXF file only houses 2 dimensions, not 3 dimensions. Yeah, so this is the chassis and thank you for being part of this session. If you have any questions, post it on the group or write to us or you can give us a call and we'll clarify it for you. I hope this session is recorded and we'll all be able to use it. I'm going to stop presenting. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to take a few questions now. The chat box is open. Can you send a picture of the board? Yeah, I'm going to send a picture of the board with dimensions. I'm going to send a picture of the board with dimensions. There was a question, can you do the mirror for the square ones? Yes, you can do mirror for all of these. Any sketch that you have done, you could mirror it along a particular line. You could create your own line anywhere on the block and mirror it. Thank you. Have a great week ahead. See you on Saturday for our hands-on session. Good night.